The views expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official position of MyPSA. This content is intended for educational purposes and reflects individual professional experiences. Welcome back to the second episode of MyPSA FutureRx 2026. In today's second episode, we are normalizing the uncertainties of career exploration and addressing the pressure of choosing a specialty early on. The reality is that every pharmacy pathway opens doors and quietly closes others. Yet, most students make these decisions without fully understanding that trade-off. To help navigate this landscape, we will be diving into the day-to-day responsibilities, entry pathways, and progression realities across diverse pharmacy sectors. Our goal is to broaden your awareness of the professional options available to you beyond the classroom, equipping you with the insight needed to make confident and informed choices about your future career trajectory. I'm your host, Swaru. Joining us today to share their first-hand experiences and industry insights, Madam Nohana binti Nawawi Suri, Mr. Moon Weng Hong, who have successfully navigated these career paths and are here to share what the industry is truly like on the ground. Welcome to MyPSA FutureRx 2026. Madam Nohana, could you begin with a short introduction about yourself and your background?
Hi, hello, moderator Zuru and organizing committee. It's a great pleasure for me to share my 30 years career journey in pharma industry. I'm a pharmacist by profession, graduated from University Science Malaysia. I graduated in 1995. I started my career in pharma industry from the beginning. I will be telling you more about my career throughout the session, and I look forward to share my experience with all of you.
Madam Nohana for your introduction. Mr. Moon, could you begin with a short introduction about yourself and your background?
Hello everyone, I'm Weng Hong. I'm a graduate from University of Malaya studying pharmacy. I've just completed my PRP in industry, so today I will share some of my experience for industry.
Thank you, Mr. Moon, for your introduction. So to begin our discussion today, let's first talk about the realities of navigating these career choices. Mr. Moon, when you were starting out, many students felt drawn toward clinical or community roles. What made you decide to choose the industrial and product development pathway instead?
My decision was largely driven by my personal interest and also career aspiration. During my university internships, I think it's similar for most of the university. I had the opportunity to experience both clinical and community pharmacy settings. While I appreciate the important roles of pharmacy play in patient care, I found that the daily responsibilities in this setting were generally more structured and repetitive. So I'm someone who enjoy variety, problem solving, and taking on new challenges. So I feel that the industrial pathway offers a more dynamic working environment. Another factor also attract me is that for pharmaceutical industry, it's more work-life balance. Unlike a healthcare setting in hospital and community that requires shift work, the industrial role typically follow regular working hours, so allowing us for better planning for both professional and personal commitments. Overall, the combination of technical challenges, continuous learning, and also work-life balance made industrial my career choice.
That really highlights how the career decisions should be based on the personal interests rather than just simply following the most familiar pathway based on other people's expectations. It really gives us a big insight on what you do in the industrial and product development pathway. Madam Nohana, what led you to the site management and regulatory pathway, and what are your core responsibilities?
Okay, to start with, I will share my career journey, because when I started in pharma industry, I started as a sales and marketing and followed by regulatory affairs. So why I choose this direction? Because I know what I do not want in my career. You know what I mean? Because for me, I strike through the pathway which I do not want to take. And in this case, I do not want to take the pathway moving into hospital or retail pharmacy. So at that time, that's where my career began in 1996 with pharma industry. I was a sales representative with one of the multinational companies based in Malaysia. And my current responsibility started from the raw material of the ingredient that you need to use when you manufacture a product until the release of the product, which cover from research and development, supply chain, manufacturing, engineering, quality control, quality assurance, and warehouse and logistics. So that is actually the entire operation of for the site as one of the manufacturing company in Malaysia.
Thank you for sharing your journey, Madam Nahana. It sounds like a massive responsibility to keep everything running smoothly while making sure all the strict rules are followed. So moving on to the next question, could you share a moment of doubt or uncertainty you encountered early in your transition toward leadership and site direction?
Actually, Zoru, in reality, a moment of uncertainty is a part of the journey, is a part of the process. Every time change happen in my career, right? So there's a few things that I would like to share how I overcome the situation of moment of doubt and uncertainty. So one of the important things which I did from the beginning of my career is actually I get into the circle of mentors within the industry. For example, be part of the association or networking to enhance my knowledge and share our challenges with the people around you. For example, being part of the association like Malaysian Pharmacist Society, for example, Pharmaceutical Association of Malaysia, which is the association for multinational companies. And we also have a local association, which is MOPI. I'm sure all of you are aware, Malaysian Organization of Pharmaceutical Industry, and also ISPE, International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering. So be part of this association helps me to overcome the uncertainty, the doubt, and also able to go through the challenges. But another point which I want to share, which is equally important, is actually learning from your team members. They are the best source of knowledge, and at the same time, we ourselves have to acknowledge our weakness and we have to continue to learn. So it's important that for us to have that attitude and mentality that it doesn't matter how, who, and when you learn, but you have to continue learn and explore the knowledge within the industry. So that's my how I overcome every time I come across the uncertainty in my career.
Thank you for being so open about that. It really shows that stepping out of our comfort zone is how we truly grow. And
Yes,
it is
correct.
very important to, like as you mentioned just now, to learn from our team members and people surrounding us so that we can gain more experiences. Mr. Moon, can you share a specific moment of doubt or uncertainty you faced when you first started out in formulation and research?
Yeah, definitely. When I first joined the R&D departments, one of my biggest doubts was that whether I had the sufficient technical knowledge to perform well in the role. So during the university time, we actually learned the fundamentals of formulation science. But once I entered the industry, I realized that there's actually much more to learn. So during my attachment as a fully registered pharmacist, I was exposed to formulation challenges which involve the understanding of interaction between excipients, troubleshooting manufacturing issues, optimizing process parameter, and also understanding how different equipment and different machine mark could affect the product quality. Initially, I actually felt doubtful to myself because many of these practical considerations were not something I had encountered in depth before during my uni days. But looking back now, that initial uncertainty actually became a driving force that motivated me to continuously improve myself, my technical competency, and also develop confidence in my role as a formulation pharmacist.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think many students will find comfort in knowing that even experienced professionals like you started with similar doubts and challenges. We as students should acknowledge that this kind of moment of doubt or uncertainty is part of our journey in growing. So next up, I would also like to ask what trade-offs should students be aware of if they want to enter the R&D field?
For me, I think one of the most important trade-off is that R&D requires a strong commitment to continuous learning. Unlike some roles where the knowledge and workflow is typically relatively standardized, formulation and product development often involving solving new problems and dealing with situations that do not have a straightforward answers. So as a result, you will need to invest significant time in self-learning, reading scientific literature, understanding the regulatory requirements, and also keeping up with new technologies and industry trends.
That's an important reminder that understanding both the benefits and challenges help us make better career decisions. So students should be more active in self-learning and engaging in updated with the situation right now so that they can be fit in this industry. Now let's move beyond the college company brochures. In this next segment, we are going to go into the challenges and hidden trade-offs that students need to consider before making their career choices. Madam Norhana, a common belief among students is that moving into site management and regulatory roles offers a very rapid linear career progression. Is this true in practice?
Okay, it's not true. Yeah, I give you example of my journey and experience. For example, in regulatory, you start with from executive position, you can be promoted to a manager, you can be promoted to a regulatory director, you can be promoted to the regional office, maybe somewhere in the Asian region, or you can also be in the international office. So the career progression for regulatory affairs is also very clear. So there's no doubt that the progression of a career you can see very clearly. In fact, in the past, I was moving from executive to a manager and also to the acting director for regulatory affairs. Yeah. So basically, with a strong foundation in regulatory, and as a pharmacist, you always have the opportunity to enhance your career in the entire value chain of pharma industry, because the entire value chain of pharma industry covered by the law and legislation guideline related to pharmaceuticals, such as I'm sure you learned during the forensic paper, the Pharmacy Act, Sales of Drug Act, Cosmetic and Drug Control Regulation, and all the guidelines. So everything is about pharmaceutical. So I've gone through the journey, and now I'm managing a plant, manufacturing plant. And for site management, you have the opportunity from starting as the head of department, for example, QC, QA, manufacturing. Then you can move to technical director position, and you can also move to the chief operating officer, and finally maybe one day you will become chief executive officer or managing director of the company. So the career progression is very vast, and you can actually move from one step to another step in the career if you work hard and you really enjoy what you are doing.
Thank you, Madam Norhana. That really clarifies things. It sounds like the progress is about gaining different experiences across the site to truly understand how everything connects in the industry. Next up, when students are deciding whether to enter site management or regulatory pathways, what personality traits should they check against to know if they are a good fit?
Okay, when you decide to go to pharma industry, it doesn't matter whether you want to join in the manufacturing, you want to do regulatory. I think overall for me, the important personality traits required for the pharma industry, the first one is actually open mind. You have to be open to accept new tasks, new assignment, which you might not have any prior knowledge or experience. So you have to like take it, accept, and embrace through the journey. So you can't be a close-minded person and telling yourself that, oh, I didn't learn that during my university. There is no syllabus teaching me about that particular area, so I don't want to do. In fact, to share my experience, I start my journey in sales and marketing, and during my time, we don't have any courses or module in pharma syllabus telling us about sales and marketing. But with open mind, I take it and I embrace the journey. Yeah. And the second things that the personality that you need to have is you have to continue learn and expand your knowledge. Like I mentioned before, you have to learn yourself, and you have to actually have the attitude of lifelong learning. That's number 2. Number 3, for pharma industry, personality traits that you need to have is soft skill. Okay, actually, when I interview the student or any particular staff to join the company, I always emphasize on their soft skill. I always evaluate their soft skill, not so much on your degree, how many A you score, how many A plus, how many dean lists you have, but I focus on the strong soft skill, how the student actually share or reveal the soft skill part. For example, in communication, it's very important that the person has a good communication skill working in pharma industry and with various stakeholders. So you really need to communicate well. You need to adapt yourself in a different environment. For example, adapt yourself working in multinational company, adapt yourself in working with local company, adapt yourself when you have to deal with the authority. And the other important soft skill is on empathy, willing to listen and willing to understand and willing to give your guidance to your staff. Yeah. And the fourth part, which I want to highlight about the personality traits, is being authentic, being original, being honest, and full of integrity is very important in pharma industry because we are highly regulated industry. So the integrity part is very important. I'm sure all the students are aware about the Code of Pharmacy Practice. We have 7 core code of conducts for the pharmacy. So you have to align yourself towards that code of ethics. So that's actually, it's quite long, but I hope, you can remember the 4 points which I mentioned just now.
Thank you, Madam Rohana. That is truly a great advice for us students. This really helps us students to gain more courage to explore and to embrace failure into lessons that shape us stronger. So, when students are deciding whether to enter R&D and formulation pathway, what personality traits should they check against to know if they are a good fit?
I think one of the most important traits is that it requires a strong communication skill. So there's a common misconception that industry roles require less communication compared to clinical and also community settings because there's no direct patient interaction. However, this is not true. In reality, all roles in industry actually involve extensive communication with wide range of stakeholders. For example, within a company, you need to coordinate closely with different departments to ensure your project or your task progress smoothly. In addition, there's also a frequent communication with external parties such as vendors, contract manufacturers, or regulatory authorities, depending on the role that you have taken up.
I think this really reminded us that communication is also very important in this industry because basically students are more think that industry will require less communication. So knowing this will let students be able to know which industry they are most best fit in based on their personality traits. I would also like to ask, what trade-offs should students be aware of if they want to enter the R&D field?
For me, I think one of the most important trade-off is that R&D requires a strong commitment to continuous learning. Unlike some roles where the knowledge and workflow is typically relatively standardized, Formulation and product development often involving solving new problems and dealing with situations that do not have a straightforward answers. So as a result, you need to invest significant time in self-learning, reading scientific literature, understanding the regulatory requirements, and also keeping up with new technologies and industry trends.
So, I would also like to ask, what is one major opportunity or perspectives you think students might miss out on if they automatically default to clinical or retail roles without exploring industry first?
One major opportunity that a student may miss is that the broader and more diverse career progression pathway available in pharmaceutical industry. In the clinical or retail settings, career progression is more often linear and structured. Typically, you will advance within a defined path. But for industry sector, it offers a multiple parallel career pathway depending on your strength and your interests. For example, within industry, after you have finished your PRP rotation, you might progress into departments such as R&D, production, regulatory affairs, quality assurance, validation, or even logistics. And even you can choose some of the departments that is not in your PRP rotations. It depends on your interest. In addition, the pharmaceutical industry also provides exposure to global opportunities, especially if you are working in a multinational companies where they might be chance to work on international projects or even relocate across the regions.
That really opens our eyes, Mr. Moon. This multi-parallel strength and interest shows that the pharmacy world is much bigger than just the counter or the clinic. And this, like exploring industry, different kind of industry gives us a completely different way to make an impact. Next up, when a fresh graduate steps into the R&D department, what is the steepest learning curve they usually encounter and how can they best prepare for it?
In my personal opinion, one of the steepest learning curve for fresh grad entering R&D department is that you need to adapt to reality that failure are a normal and essential part of development. Unlike academic setting, where outcomes is often expected to be correct within a defined scope. For example, if you study hard, then you excel in your exams. So formulation development in industry is rarely linear. Many trials may not produce the desired result, and each outcome might require you to do a systematic analysis to understand the root cause and guide further optimizations. Another challenge is that developing the ability to connect theoretical knowledge with practical manufacturing and equipment considerations. Understanding excipients functionality and formulation principle is important, but applying them in real production environment is where the issue came out. Factors such as process parameters, equipment limitation, and scale-up effect comes into play, which require you to have a deeper level of thinking and come up with solutions. To prepare for this, fresh grad should build a mindset that is open to learning, problem solving, and also accepting the setback as part of the process. In addition to strengthening your foundational knowledge in technical, being proactive in asking questions and learning from the experience can significantly shorten the learning curve.
That is a great advice for fresh grads, Mr. Moon. Knowing the challenges is important in understanding clearly the industry, which having the right mindset can help us bridge that gap quickly. So today's discussion has shown us that moving from the classroom to the industry means looking beyond the textbooks and understanding the real constraints of each path. We have seen that there are no perfect choices, but decisions that shape your professional identity. As we bring today's discussion to a close, let's distill our conversation into essential takeaways to guide your career path. Mr. Moon, when students reach out to you for career guidance, what is one specific critical question they should ask to get a clearer perspective of view into the R&D sector?
I think for the question students should ask is, what does R&D actually looks like in reality on a day-to-day basis? Because this is important because many students may have a simplified perception that R&D is mainly developing new formulations, running experiments and trials. In reality, R&D actually involves a broader scope of work, which involves stakeholder management, product management, project management, and also you need to prepare dossier for product registrations. And there are a lot of side tasks, such as you need to make a good rapport with your vendors and also external manufacturer to understand more about your formulations. Understanding this actually can help students to set reality expectation that R&D is not only about innovation and successful outcome, but also need to handle setbacks.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. That is such a smart question to keep in mind. It really helps us get a clearer perspective in R&D and understanding what they should expect in this sector. Madam Nohana, from your experience in site management, why is it so important for students to confer with practicing pharmacists across different sectors before working in their career paths?
Yeah, it's very important for the students to seek and to be exposed throughout their student time to pharma industry, and not only during the final year, and whereby you have to make the choice during the final year. So it has to be built from the beginning, from your first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. You have to expose yourself, because the journey in pharma industry is totally different from a hospital or retail pharmacy, and the job scope is totally different. So I think you have to expose yourself through various opportunities, such as having an internship or doing your PRP with the pharma industry. Although you can refer to the information on the internet, but having the real experience, a real working environment is very important. So either you can go through the internship, a short-term attachment, or you can choose a pharma industry of your PRP placement. In the future, yeah, you have to do that in order for you to experience the real pharma industry. And from there, you have to plan, you have to understand about pharma industry, and you have to plan how to navigate your career within that pharma industry value chain. For example, is your interest with regulatory? Is your interest with research and development, clinical affairs, with manufacturing, with sales and marketing? In fact, there's another career which also interesting for pharmacists, which is customer care, because I experienced managing customer care in the past. So something that very interesting, and also a logistic and distribution. So the student need to be exposed to this opportunity for them to understand and to make the decision of their interest for the future career pathway.
That is so true, Madam Nohana. Talking to people who are actually on the ground can really give us a realistic view that we just can't get from a website. So, Madam Nohana, when students reach out to you for career guidance, what is one specific critical question they should ask to get a clearer perspective of view into the regulatory sector?
So I will ask them again about what is actually their passion. Anyway, you have to start with something at the basic level. So the critical question for me to ask them is actually, for regulatory affairs, are you the person which is like to read and review document? Okay, so that's the important area for regulatory affairs personnel, to have that skill in order for them to excel as a regulatory affairs personnel. So moving into site management, of course, the critical question I ask is, do you like to lead people? Do you like to manage people? So these are critical questions for you to ask yourself. Can you actually manage staff or manage your subordinate in a large scale? So if you have the passion in talking to people, in giving guidance to people, so you can consider to go into site management, where you need to handle probably a few hundreds people. So for me, again, you have to ask yourself, what is your strength, what is your weakness, and understand that from time to time, and try to overcome and develop those skills throughout your career.
These are very powerful questions to reflect on, Madam Nohana. It really makes us to look past the surface and understand what the day-to-day work actually demands from us before we jump in. and it really brings everything back to self-awareness and helps us to choose a clearer path based on our true strengths. Today's conversation has shown us that stepping out of the classroom isn't just about applying textbook science, it's about understanding the trade-offs, constraints, and operational realities that shape our industry. Thank you, Madam Lohana, Mr. Moon, for sharing your experiences and providing such an honest look behind the scenes of pathways. We would also like to thank our audience for tuning in and staying with us until the end of the second episode. Now, it's time for the MyPSA FutureRx mini contest. To participate, answer the posted questions in the comments below by 7th July 2026. By joining in, you'll have the chance to win tickets to the MyPSA PGCF 2026 through our Spin the Wheel lucky draw. Winners will be announced on the MyPSA official Instagram page. Make sure to submit your answers before the deadline. That wraps up the second episode of MyPSA FutureRx 2026. If you found today's discussion insightful and want to stay connected with the pulse of the profession, make sure to subscribe and follow us on MyPSA's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. In our next episode, we will be tackling a fascinating and complex issue: why you can't always give the medicine patients ask for. We will look at how healthcare policies and regulatory systems dictate medicine access and shape our daily workflows using real-world advocacy examples to develop the systemic thinking needed to understand the pharmacist's critical role in public health policy. Thank you so much for tuning in and stay inspired as you step into your next shift.